Welcome to Cactus Crossfire, your go-to for hot takes and prickly debates.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Cactus Crossfire. I'm your host, Sisto Beta, here with my good friend, Eddie Ableser. Eddie, how you doing? Where you at? You in Utah?
I'm wonderful. I'm in Arizona these days, enjoying the nice, tepid temperature of Arizona. We had a cold chill coming through the state, and I think we're in the high 90s. So those are my friends in Arizona. Enjoy it while it lasts, because 117 is just around the corner, right, Sisto?
We have been very lucky. The last couple of days we had a nice little rainstorm come through here in New Mexico, so it cooled it down for a little bit. But we had a couple of days that were in the 80s here in New Mexico and Albuquerque, at least. So it was really nice for those few days. But we're back up there hitting the 100, 101 temperatures. Today was 92 as I came in. And, led to my wardrobe for today, because it's too hot to have that type of a jacket on and be cruising through the streets of Albuquerque, because Lord knows you don't want to roast in there. So,
we do it, but we try to roll up our cuffs in Arizona, right? Like have the little Miami Vice look where you get to run in and solve everyone's problems.
Okay, well, Eddie, that's what we do here at Cactus Crossfire. We help people figure out their problems. Same with Try Strategies. We do that too. But I think most of the time we have our sleeves rolled up most of the time when we're working. So, that's something that we bring to the table, and I think a lot of folks can agree with us on that. At the same time, the great part about all of this is that we've had a great news cycle since last time we joined each other. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Everybody's been calling in. They love the podcast. They love Eddie. They love Sisto. My tias are still, getting all the little viejitas at the senior centers on their iPads now saying, look at my hito. So I'm proud of them. Thank you, aunties. I appreciate all of you. So let's kick things off. How, everything is coming around. One of the things that we talk about a lot in politics is messaging, right? And how that message is delivered. And what we've heard on either side is basically, how do you craft an effective message and how do you deliver that message, right? And Eddie, you as a candidate, we're aware of this. It's always know your audience, know who you're talking to, know your platform. But something has happened that is very interesting in the last couple of years under the Trump years, what we'll call the Trump years. His tone and his rhetoric seems very confrontational, right? It's a classic us versus them style. He rallies his base with charged language and, criticizes political opponents all the time whenever he can, and really breaking down boundaries that we're typically used to in political discourse, right? And he's been very good at, drawing on, strong emotional appeals to people, direct attacks on either the media or politicians or, opinions that are out there. And, but at the same time, having a real populist message and a call to action to energize his supporters. What do you think about this new era of Trump?
So let's be very direct here. Call it for what it is, right? Trump started it. Trump started the rhythmic, drumbeat, repetitive, aggressive tone. Now, I don't think it's fair to just say that Trump is the only one that's using this type of messaging, right? Because when Trump went away, when you watch what President Biden did, he did similar things, right? He had his facial expressions. That's a bunch of malarkey, right?
Yep.
He did this type of rhythm as well. A different type of tone, albeit, but he was aggressive. He pushed back. He created very clear, distinct lines to separate an argument. And and listen, this is the new age of politics. This is what it is. If you cannot engage in politics from a civil discourse, rational actors coming together in a true dialogue to the American public. I mean, imagine the days of people getting around their radios, sitting down and listening to, Eisenhower and Truman and these other stalwarts of American history that spoke, right? Roosevelt, the campfire conversation to the American public. Instead, it is short, quick sound bites. What people are listening to is what they're looking at on their phones. If you don't capture them for 7 seconds, it's over, right? Trump is the master of that. And certain Democrats are now getting into that space as well. But this is the new reality in which we live in, right? The conversations that sort of breed that intellectual engagement is over. We don't live in that world anymore.
We're not seeing the high level intellectual engagement, but we're also seeing, who is this message? And back to how we started this conversation, knowing your audience. Who are you targeting? Who are you going after? And when you start looking at where Trump's highest support is, it's with non-college educated voters, right? So, but in that messaging, there's this whole macho, misogynistic rhetoric or tone that he's taken on. He's the, I would say he's the John Wayne 3.0, because I'm going to give Reagan the 2.0 of the John Wayne era. But he's the 3.0, and he's gone to that other extreme. And there's this point where the strongman stops to where he's just projecting the strongman, but is it really strong in the policies that he's putting forward?
But Sisto, the American public is starving for leadership, right? So he's only reacting to the consumerism of what people are wanting. Voters are wanting that aggressive, that in-your-face, brazen, bullish attitude that leads them. And that's exactly what Trump has done, and that's why he is winning in the public discourse, because the American public are starving for leadership. Why are we starving for leadership? I mean, we have to unpack this, right? Because it's winning. And again, Biden did that as well. He got aggressive. He got very right-hand punch to Trump in that election the first time around. So he occupied that space too. The American public is starving for leadership because the lack of individuals looking at the core basic needs. We've become so fractured into isolated policy issues that there's not a single person that says, you know what, America, this is what we need. This is what your families need. This is what your children need. Right?
Yeah, but
Trump
Eddie,
is occupying that space.
When Trump is occupying that space, though, I'm the data guy, right? So I'm always looking at the numbers, right? And even though he's appealing to 40-some% of women, right? There's women are the largest part of the electorate, and how long will this macho rhetoric coming from both sides really play out? When does the line get drawn by women to say, if you're on social media as much as I am, and you're doing your thing, you hear a lot of women, they're gravitating towards that macho individual. Even in popular culture. One of the biggest shows over the last couple of years was Yellowstone. And a lot of folks were gravitating toward that Rip character in Yellowstone. And who was he? He was the big, tough, burly, cowboy hat wearing, dark sunglasses, bearded guy that was just going to knock down the doors to get to his future wife and girlfriend. And that's what people were, a lot of women. You saw a lot of memes that said, if I don't have a relationship like Rip and Beth, I don't want it, right? So I'm beginning to wonder how far that is going to carry over, how much more we're going to get that. And it's kind of strange to watch Democrats now picking up on that rhetoric. We've been watching Gavin Newsom, as an emerging presidential nominee, and he's just like, I'm in your face. All of his stuff is coming out, and he's doing that. But the interesting part with him is there's been a real the person that's helping him craft that message. Holy cow, Camille Zapata. Camille
She's a
Zapata.
genius. She's a genius. Well, listen, what Camila's been able to do, right, is take a guy and Gavin, right, absolute, checkered history, just like Trump, right? Infidelity, leaves family, the morals are very fluid, just like Trump. And what is Gavin doing now? Gavin is out there using artificial intelligence, using the bully pulpit of the social media arm, and creating these just ridiculous images, but it's capturing the national attention. And you know what? Good for him. That's what you should be doing if you want to be the Democratic nominee for president. That is the line that he must toe, right? You had Westmore coming out talking about, FEMA dollars. And then the entire country, just their eyes rolled back in their head. Boring, right? You have Josh Shapiro coming out in Pennsylvania, pushing back on Trump on the big, beautiful bill. Okay, a little bit boring, but here comes Gavin Newsom, right? And he's like, all right, redistricting. You guys want to redistrict and gerrymander in Texas? Guess what I'm going to do in California? I'm going to redistrict. I'm going to gerrymander these districts to give Democrats more of an opportunity. He's fighting fire with fire, right? He is bringing out his iron and swinging it right back at Trump. And honestly, like that's what the Democratic Party needs.
Yeah.
That's what the Democratic Party needs.
Yeah.
What do we got there? What do you got? Your points up?
and the big part is that Kamala Harris's debate strategy was surrounding all this, and she was able to hit a lot of those high points in her debates because, well, quite frankly, she was a prosecutor. She was able to go into those debates and put him on his heels. Much different than how Biden performed in his first debate against her. And and the big thing with Trump, going back to who Trump is and where Trump's from, a lot of it ties back to, and it happens with all of us, it comes from where we're from, how we grew up, and what we do. I mean, this guy went to, a military high school, and then after that, he was in a very strong at the Wharton College. He was there with a lot of the corporate guys there at the Wharton College getting his degree. But the problem has been with Democrats is that we've had a hard time having a more macho narrative appeal to voters, but I think that's because we risk of alienating women. And Gavin Newsom is giving us some hope because he's being led by Camille Zapata, a queer Latina, and mimics the tones and parodies of Trump. So it's the importance of the anecdotes that's connecting the listeners in the era of rapid-driven meme communication that we need to look at.
The issue around the Democratic Party becoming so reticent to engage in the Trumpian style has damaged the Democratic Party, honestly, for many, many years. Cecil, you and I were talking about a couple months ago, Rahm Emanuel went on PBS, right? And what did he say? Right? He said, give me your weak, give me your woke, your huddled masses. We're the Democrat Party, right? And that's what they've turned into, right? Like, unbelievable that we've hit this point where the weak and woke are now the defining characteristics of the Democratic Party. And thank God it's that Gavin Newsom. Now, I'm not saying I'm pro Gavin Newsom. I've got my own concerns with him, but someone needed to get out in front of this space and flex some muscle. And maybe Gavin doesn't have any muscle, but guess what AI does for you? It can put some muscle on your body and make the country feel like you have muscle, right?
You must be looking.
But that's
you
what
must
he's
be looking
doing.
at my TikToks,
and he's flexing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's where this narrative that he's flexing and the fact that this is being crafted by a queer Latino woman, I think is very important to the conversation. Okay. And we've talked about this on this podcast and we've talked about it here. Women in the Hispanic community are the first to step up and lead the charge, right? And they, you know, and maybe in those communities, macho necessarily isn't a bad thing. You know, I remember growing up and hearing a lot of my mom's friends and girlfriends when they would have their little girls' night and getting together, and they'd be talking about, you know, the one single friend that they all had, and they'd be see, you know, they'd see the guy she was dating, and they'd be like, "Que macho," you know, and it wasn't and it wasn't a bad thing. And it wasn't a horrible thing. The misogyny wasn't overwhelming in it. It was something that they welcomed. And so, you know, and that's what's leading to this conversation is that we as a party need to understand that being strong and authoritative in our debates doesn't make us you know, less inclined to what women are telling us to do, because at the same time, here you have Gavin Newsom being told by a queer Latino woman how to craft his message.
And Sisto, that's so important, because think about the tenor and tone of Democratic elected officials for many, many years, right? What did Trump capitalize on? He capitalized on the belief in nationalism, in the pride in country, America first, right? Make America great again, right? These are all themes. This is not new. He's copied the playbook from many other world leaders, some awful in their history, right? We know that Hitler used the exact same frame in Germany post-World War I to rally the nationalistic sentiments of that country. The point is, it works. He has a singular message about national pride, national identity, right? Love of country. And he capitalized on that. And then he asserts strength and leadership. Democrats are going out here in fragmented sections talking about, right? What did Rahm talk about? The education system's broken. But what do Democrats talk about? Bathrooms. That's what they talk about.
Yeah.
We're not talking about how do we fix the education system. They're talking about gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah.
And that is becoming tone deaf on the American public. I'm not saying that that's not important, Sisto, right? We do need to protect children who identify in the GLBTQ spectrum, right? But that's not the national narrative. The national narrative needs to be, why are our schools failing our children?
Well,
and the moment they say that, Democrats have to look at the teachers union in their face and say, crap, why are our teachers failing our children?
Well, the other big part of this is, though, Eddie, is, I mean, you went through it earlier on in this conversation about, you know, Truman and Eisenhower and Roosevelt having, you know, a specific tone. Well, I mean, everything in the world is cyclical, right? It all comes back to something that nothing new isn't something that was old before. And right now, where we're seeing a lot of this is that, you know, let's go back in time and let's look at somebody like Andrew Jackson, right? The father of the Democratic Party, Old Hickory himself, right? And this guy was...
Don't tell Democrats that, Sisto. They don't want to admit to that.
Well, they don't want to admit to it, but here you had a hard-drinking military guy who just told it, and to use a Eddieism, since we're talking about Trumpisms, we'll use an Eddieism. You know, let's tell it like it is, right? Yeah. And that's what Old Hickory was doing. And I mean, you go back in time and you look at some of those. I mean, they weren't memes. They were ads that they would buy in the paper of, you know, his opponents, in very compromising positions with farm animals and all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, that happened then. And that was, and if you think about it over time, that was, we've only had, we're closer to 50 presidents in time. And we're still a baby country, right? So a lot of this stuff, I mean, we've seen it in other countries. We've seen the scandals in other countries. We've seen how, things have been weaponized in other spaces. But that leads to, what does all of this messaging do to the voters? How does this affect the voters? How does it change the voter pulse? And how do we get to where we are now, right? So
yeah, it's history repeating itself, right? It's Republicans. We're the party of Lincoln, And then Democrats, no one's out there. You're not seeing Democrats saying we're the party of Jackson because, Jackson's got a big stain on the Indian Removal Act.
Yeah.
Like, there's things that we need to sort of come to roost and figure out, right, where our own hypocrisies lie within the party. And again, full circle, I am really proud that Gavin Newsom, again, not saying he's my candidate, but I'm proud that someone's finally stepping up and engaging in that space because it's creating a whole national narrative, right? Soon we're going to have the Newsom coin that people will start purchasing using distributed ledger technology to buy their own, right? Their own special, digital currency, right? You're going to have our own, now X, or the Newsom's going to create his own social media platform at some point. Like, that's what needs to happen. You have to fight fire with the same type of tone and tenor. And so I'm happy that that's the direction that's heading. I think other Democrats need to step up and get in there. And you know what? Going back to Camille, what a genius, right? Like she said, she swung for the fences. I think she hit a home run. That's my personal opinion, right? I love looking at those memes. Hulk Hogan, have you seen the one? Hulk Hogan, the AI standing over Newsom, praying over him. It's genius. Who doesn't love Hulk Hogan?
Well,
right?
Hulkster had his own problems too, brother. I'm more of a Ric Flair kind of a guy. He's my personal political philosopher. In order to be the man, you have to beat the man. So that's kind of where we're headed with all of this. But like I was saying before, who's paying attention? Who's turning out? Let's zoom in and take a look at the different generations and how this new platform are being shaped by this new political agenda and world. So, if we can just slowly start talking about, the generational differences, and we talked about this last time, we talked about, the generational trends to be the big disruptor. And, if you thought the meme wars were a generational divide, we're shaking up the campaigns and we're just waiting until, it gets to the elections. And, and even 7 headlines themselves, even the ones you're talking about now, are being generated by AI. And there's a big debate within legislatures and Secretary of State's offices about how AI is being used in campaigns, right?
Yeah.
Have you been using AI at all, Eddie?
Yeah, we do a little bit of AI with Tri Strategies. We use it for, I think, research. I think is one of the best things with AI. I wake up every day and I count myself lucky because my wife has been talking about this guy named Chad, and Chad has told her this, and Chad has told her that. And my kids say, "Oh, Mom was asking Chad the other day this," and I'm like, "My goodness, I'm getting replaced." Here I went out, Sisto, to try to impress my wife. Right? I get a PhD. I go get elected. I start a business, and this
guy
jackass Chad gets into my life, and thank God that it's his last name's GPT because I don't know what I'd do because he's a genius.
Well,
AI is dictating the direction, I think, of many lives and many businesses.
And it's interesting
in this world.
It's interesting to watch people using. It used to be, hey, Google, right? Google. Everybody used to Google everything, and now they would rather go to ChatGPT or Siri and go to ChatGPT. And before even that had started, I guess because me being Gen X and us being at the forefront of the internet, right? We were there when Al Gore invented the internet. The fun part has been, is the tools that I learned in using the internet then still apply today. The internet is only as good as how you use it and how you search for things. You have to dig a little deeper. Most folks, and ChatGPT, it really just grabs those first few headlines out of the ether and throws it into an answer for you. But when you start asking it to be a little bit more detailed, a little bit more nuanced, and I see a lot of people in Gen X, even though we were never the loudest. We were maybe the one who decides who wins the family argument. Now Gen Z and millennials are bringing politics to places like TikTok and even into their dating lives. And we were talking about this before, and how AI affects that, right? So, you know, Eddie, in those spaces, now that we're seeing such much more reliance on Chad and all of these other systems for AI, where's that going to land with Gen X, Gen Z, and millennials in a hyper political and hyper digital narrative, right?
Well, let's go back to the economy, right? This is where, Ram talked about in that broadcast, Carville's the economy is stupid. Well, it is. I mean, this is the key. But here's the key thing with the new technology, with artificial intelligence and automated intelligence and the new robotics that are being brought forward. I was just looking at the GI generation, right? Our generation above us, right? This older generation, the Gen Xers, the baby boomers, they are not leaving their position because they are now adapting to the new economy, utilizing AI in their own practices, right? They don't have to retain all the knowledge in their head any longer. They don't have to be able to appropriately grammatically fix their own correspondence. Everything is done for them, right? So it is prolonging individuals within the GI and baby boomer generations in the workforce. Once again, though, jumping over the Gen X population, and now you're stuck with millennials who quiet quit, who are saying, I don't want to, there's no hope, right? So I'm going to live at home. I don't want to buy my own home. I want to quiet quit. I want to leave what I'm doing, make money when I want to, travel when I want to. And artificial intelligence, automated intelligence, robotics, it's amazing. It is creating a longer stability and sustainability of this older workforce to maintain in the economy. And they are capitalizing on it. I just saw there's in Japan, there's warehouses that are hiring senior citizens who are using exoskeletons to move to be the laborers.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. They're utilizing exoskeletons, sort of operating in these suits, and they could be laborers using their minds, engaging them in the economy. That's where I think it's really important, because where historically at this age group, Sisto, many of these people have retired and the new leaders coming in have occupied that space. That's not happening right now. AI is prolonging that time. And so that's why you see a larger engagement from the older generations that are refusing to leave their base.
And I mean, but that's, we've been watching that with boomers for a long time. I mean, right now, and here's yet another, another side effect of the pandemic, right? Of the COVID era. A lot of these grandparents were immunocompromised, and the only way that they could get to see their kids, their grandkids, was to pick up an iPhone, to pick up a computer, to pick up an iPad, and get on social media, right? And they had to learn it quickly. I mean, right here in New Mexico, we had even small businesses have erupted out of that, of the boomers wanting to learn how to use technology in a more meaningful way. In New Mexico, we have a great not-for-profit that's run by a friend of mine called Teeniers, where they're pairing teenagers with seniors to learn how to use social media, to learn how to use a computer, to do all the things that comes somewhat naturally to Gen X and more naturally to millennials and Gen Z. So, you're right. Those things are changing the landscape of the workforce. They're changing the landscape of the classroom. We're seeing ChatGPT being accepted by universities and colleges all over the world, of being an acceptable platform to go and get citations from. Back in the day when me and Eddie were in ancient times, as my niece likes to say, we used to have to go to the library and go through a card catalog. We had to knew how to use the Dewey Decimal System. Yeah.
My good friend Dewey, I hated that.
Before there was Chad, there was Dewey. Okay. And we were only as and both Chad and Dewey were both only as good as the people asking the question, right?
So, you know what, Sisto? When I tell my grandkids I walked uphill both ways in snow to school, that is the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible that many people in our generation had to endure that type of archaic technology. I mean, how stupid is that?
I mean,
like a shame on every librarian in the world.
It was archaic, but I liked it a lot because it taught me how to become a better researcher, right? I mean, it taught me how to be a better researcher. I can't lie. I'm the kid that I was that guy that hung out in the library.
Did you use microfiche also?
Oh yeah, I miss microfiche.
Gosh.
I miss microfiche so much right now because it's even harder when we were using microfiche, and we're just gonna deviate here for a second.
I can't believe we're talking about microfiche.
Yeah, I am
in this
because
day of age.
I still love it. I want all those tapes back because I used to be able to go into the archives, and not all of it has been archived. Not all of it has made it onto the internet, right? It still had to have that transition from the tape to actual stuff. And I mean, when you go to most citation websites and you go to look for news articles, you can only find up to like 92, 93, 91, 92. Anything before that is all on tape. And there's some really important things that happened in the 80s and the 70s that we should remember. And so, I find myself nostalgically going to the local public library and they still have the microfiche downstairs. There's a lot of dust down there. There's a lot of crusty old people that look like me, a lot of prickly folks coming down there. But even in that, remember when we first started doing campaigns, right? You and I it was just like even when we would go out on a Saturday night and we would get people that would hand us flyers. Remember how they used to flyer? And it used to be one dude that used to draw the actual flyer out and everything. And then comes the evolution of Adobe Photoshop, right? And you're able to just take photos and paste them and post them on paste people in different positions for political mailers and send that out. That's what AI has done, is taken away our time finding the right photo, doing all that stuff. Now AI is doing that for all of us. And they create the memes in less than a minute. What used to take us 20, 30 minutes to do, now it takes AI a minute to do. But
see, so there's significant concerns around this, right? Because while we could trust that when we put that microfiche on a big, tiny little yellow and black projector and looked in the little screen and read an article from 1965 and then had to take the picture and print it, deep fakes, right? Like, this is a problem. Social media, like I said, let's go back to the Trumpism. Trumpism is quick sound bites that reverberate through the nervous system, and the individual gets excited about it, right? Well, the same thing online. Someone's looking online. They're like, oh, look at this. This is real. This person endured, the most ridiculous, situation online, and there's videos, and it's all made up. It's all fake. Like, I fear for the next generation, because the true balance has to be, how do these social media sites, Grok is what X uses, right?
Yeah.
And so Grok is out there saying, no, this is not fake. That person's image was added. I just saw one yesterday about people challenging whether or not people actually flew to space, and they're speaking to from the Apollo. And then over here is a production image. Well, Grok's like, no, that's not true at all, right? That was added later, but it looks real. I mean, and people are basing their political identities on fake AI created imagery.
Yeah, but
how do you fight stupid? Because that's stupid, right?
Well, we would all assume that there's a lot of things that are stupid by the public when they're gathering information about a campaign. And I hate to tell folks, there's a portion of the political consultants that are out there that bank on that. That they can drive a message by fooling you, and that you're not going to take the time to find out if it really is a deep fake, right? And
when I ran for office and I sent that mailer to Republicans, right? What did I do? Well, I was endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. Like, I truthfully, and it worked, put on a mailer to Republican voters in my district, supported by the League of Conservation Voters, right? And I put those words or those letters so close together so it looks like League of Conservative Voters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I preyed on the inability for someone to look a little bit deeper at something and question it.
Yeah.
And I think it worked in my races.
I mean, but that's what we do, right? We find those little niches and we find those edges where we can get that that extra 4 or 5% that we need. And you know, but the interesting part about this is that, you know, and we're so concerned about, you know, that this is the exposure that to AI can dehumanize people in a real way. Well, Eddie, I hate to tell folks, but a form of what AI does has already been introduced into the political sphere. We've been doing it for a long time. I mean, AI, everything just changes and grows. I mean, I remember when they used to tell candidates that were running for office, you know, you need to hit, you know, you need to knock, you know, 20,000 doors, and you need to do 8 pieces of mail, and you need to do 4 radio spots, and maybe buy a couple billboards and some yard signs, and that's it. But direct mail, that's where it was at, right? Well, what has happened? If you go, I challenge anybody watching this podcast, go and look at campaign finance reports. That is the most telling place of that will tell you where money is getting spent. You see these enormous, you know, digital campaign expenditures. And I mean, it's crazy. I mean, what we're spending $40,000-$50,000 on today, we used to spend $40,000-$50,000 on mail. And it's different, right? And consultants we have to be nimble, and we have to go to where people are. And due to the pandemic, everybody shifted to a social media platform. They went into a virtual space. It was the only place where people could congregate for a long time. And that's why even now, when I'm working on campaigns, I can't tell you how many times my field coordinator has come to me and said, Sisto, our field team is burnt out. And I'm like, why? What happened? Are we giving them too many doors? Are they knocking too many doors? Nobody answers the door. Because anytime a political person walks up to the door, what are they greeted by? Used to be a little ding dong. Now it's a ring camera. Yeah. So folks see who's at the door. And that's all a part of technology. That's all a part of how, you know, society grows. You know, but we have to get better as a society of how we interact with these systems. Like I kept saying, Chad and Dewey are only as good as the user. So in that, our producer Mandy has set up a little something for us, and it's AI or not. Okay.
Oh, AI or not, like hot or not. I did that once.
Hot or not? No. Not
I want to see those results.
No. This is a different one. So both of us are going to look at 2 images. We're going to look at two images each and determine if it's AI.
Are we going to throw that up on the screen?
Yeah, you're going to see it now.
Yeah. So like, you know, hot or not got canceled. Oh, AI or not. Look at that cute dog. That's AI. Come on. He's not wearing a
it's
clothes
AI
like that. AI. His eyes.
Nope.
What was it?
Not AI.
Not AI, really?
Yep. Okay. This
next
one.
That looks like a normal house.
Okay.
That's
AI or not?
Not AI.
Okay.
I say not.
Correct. It was
yes.
not. Now, so this is mine. Let's see. 5 elements of a generative plot. Taking a look.
So this is like a educational thing. Like, so this is generated content, right?
This is generated content. I mean, you're looking at now.
Is it either someone made this, or AI made this?
Yeah. So I'm going to say that this is AI. Yep. And this AI creepy. Or not? I'm going to say that this is AI. Ooh.
Oh, that's real.
So we're 1 for 1 on the test. And there's nuances in these photos, right?
1 for 2.
1 for 2. Yeah. So there's nuances in these tests.
I look at that, but I mean, think about how easy those images are, right? The images that we put in front of us, to create, and then you throw an image, a political image of your opponent, right? Maybe spray painting a swastika, that could be done easily. And
Yeah.
what's to show the difference? How do you know? How does the person know whether or not that candidate was actually spray painting a swastika or
The
not?
average person doesn't know. And I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about the average person, and the average person doesn't know. I mean, and it goes to probably one of the tenets of law and law enforcement. You know, is it beyond a reasonable doubt that this is fake, right? The photos that we're looking at, could you honestly look at them beyond a reasonable doubt and understand that it was fake? Now, on the photo that I looked at from my perspective, okay, the reason I was able to tell it was AI, it was way too detailed for anybody to do all of that work on their own. I mean, even for the most, most accomplished graphic designer, that was way too much. I mean, and no graphic designer do I know would go into that much detail unless it's, an artwork, not just, some type of educational material. But at the same time, then there's the other one where it's a photo of a farmhouse, right? And
Yeah.
from where I was seeing it and looking at it on the screen, I really couldn't tell where the nuance was of the AI. And if anybody wants to see how I've been trying to learn about the nuance of AI, I've actually been taking my face and slapping it on a lot of AI stuff to see how the quality and nuance of it comes out. And then I'm doing cute little, TikToks about it and Instagram posts about it, putting it mostly to 80s music and country music. So I'm having a great time with that. It's
There, but see, so there's going to be a significant psychological problem to this eventually, right? Think about the new generations. I remember I took my son to get a haircut, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we go through, I'm like, all right, boys' haircuts, show us some styles. Guess what? What did he gravitate to? The perfect, right? The without blemish pictures of boys, not even real, his age, with haircuts that were perfect.
Yeah.
All AI. It's a fake person with fake hair that, frankly, these hairstylists, they can't even cut. They're like, it's a cartoon, right?
And-
like, might as well just put up a cartoon.
And I want
But
to
it's almost indistinguishable. And
I want
the
to
great about
assure
this
I want to assure our audience that Eddie's hair, in fact, is real. It is not AI.
well, I've got my own my own hopes. I think eventually, right, we can, Google Meets used to do that where they put fun things on your head and you could have a little meeting and stuff.
But the question then becomes, and Eddie, you have the insight on the human mind much better than I do. I mean, you actually studied to do this, but is what are the effects on the electorate when we in a world where we know as consultants, because hardly ever candidates make these decisions, right?
Yep.
I mean, they trust us to make the most ethical decision for a campaign. That's why they hire us. Okay. But what happens when there are people that don't have empathy, and people's empathy can be hacked through these platforms? Where do we land up with that?
I mean, I think there's going to be a cliff of disillusionment, right? That's what's going to happen. You're going to see a whole electorate become frustrated, distrusting, and angry at their elected officials because ultimately, right, you can't beat them, join them. So everyone's jumping in onto the AI bandwagon. And as a result, right, Gavin Newsom, here he is with these just amazing pictures that he's posting online, or his team is. This will catch up to all these electeds eventually. But right now they're using it to capture the attention of the electorate. And it's truly interesting. I mean, we're talking about it. Other groups are talking about it, Sisto. And again, this goes back. There's not a lot of depth in the design here. It's all about the optics. And that's what elections are, Sisto. I mean, so the ethical design, I mean, I would challenge that. I would push back on you and say, really, is there anything truly ethical in campaigns and elections? Because the person that stands on their laurels, that stands on their, hey, I'm a moral person in my election, guess what happens to them? They lose. That's what happens to them. They're not going to win their election. So you either win and you jeopardize that, or you lose.
And I will tell you, there have been many times in my career where the campaign narrative and the campaign message went against my own ethical considerations. A lot of the times early on in my career, because I wanted to be an ethical operative, I did make those choices to be ethical. And to Eddie's point, he's very, very right about this, folks. You lose. Okay? You lose. Yeah. And it was something that it was really hard for me to step back and say I wouldn't feel comfortable going there, but I was realizing if I don't go there, the other side will, and they're going to beat me. So you have to circling right back to the top of this podcast, you got to meet fire with fire. And you gotta match people for their energy. And it's no different than anywhere else. But at the same time, there is this real concern that the humanistic aspects are going to get lost in all of this. And I think a lot of people have that concern. A lot of people I know I'm concerned about it. I worry about it a lot of the time because what does this affect? What we have a responsibility to the voters, right? We have a responsibility to be as straight with them, as honest with them as we can. We may spin however we spin, but at the same time, it has to have some air of truth. And right now with AI, truth doesn't factor into AI's generation of content, right? AI only generates the truth that you give it to put together. So, we've been having a good time talking about AI. And I also want to put out there that I'm actually impressed with some of the social media platforms that are out there that I'm using myself. And you had mentioned Gronk being one of them, but these platforms, they are very quick to scan your page and find those AI graphics, and they are tagging it for you if you don't do it yourself.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
The fun part has been, my favorite new little platform, TikTok. It's new to me, not new. I'm actually been on TikTok now, Eddie, for a whole year. Okay, and I did my first live the other day, and doing a live broadcast on TikTok, it realized that I was reaching a larger audience. So it actually went in and evaluated my TikTok to find what images I hadn't tagged as being AI and notified me that if you're going to be going live and you're going to be posting content and you're going to be trying to build an influence, we want you to start tagging these photos as AI generated, which I thought was awesome. I mean, I appreciated it. It was 7 or 8 posts that I had created, but it asked for that. And it even said, you haven't put the right, citations for music that I had added to the reels that I had created, all those things. But companies are sensitive to AI, and they are sensitive to how that is being presented to folks. So, it's been interesting talking about AI, but, before we wrap up, let's hit our favorite closing segment here.
Spicy, prickly, quickly.
Yep.
Spicy. All right, spicy. So here's my spicy bit for today. The Ides of March. They are upon us again in a whole new way, and truly the catalyst in which what leaders have used to win the public and convince the public will now become their demise. We talked about AI. I predict that ultimately AI will be that conspirator assassination of ideas and values upon the American public. It is our new Ides of March. It is something we should all pay attention to, or else they actually win. The prickly response I have for you today is people need to pay attention to details, because I was reading about the ceasefire in Gaza just a couple days ago, the offer by the Qatari government and the Egyptian government. And you read this and it gets the whole public excited. Hey, the Arab countries are offering a deal to Israel and a ceasefire. But you look in the details, it says, oh, Israel has to release all of the prisoners that they have arrested that are being treated humanely in jail, but the ones that have been aggressors against the government. I think that's really interesting, because those narratives on a broader level need to be identified. So I'm prickly on that. Egypt, you can't come out here and say, oh, we need a nice ceasefire, and then sneak underneath there and say, oh, Israel should release all these prisoners, these very evil people who inflicted a lot of pain upon Israel. And quickly, man, Nevada, you better be careful. Nevada's top 3 in the assembly are not running for re-election. Nevada has 2 seats in the Senate that are very swing districts. I predict quickly that the Republicans may take back one of those chambers in either the assembly or the Senate in Nevada in the next election.
Wow.
Sisto, what's spicy for you? What's prickly for you? What's prickly for you?
What's spicy for me is, and I brought it with me today because I think it's something that everybody in the state of New Mexico and anybody who's actually really cares about politics should look at. The former director of the Legislative Council, Legislative Finance Committee, David Abbey, has come out with a book, 40 Years in the New Mexico Roundhouse. I started reading it the last couple of days, and if anybody wants to understand how a budget works in the state, David Abbey's book is probably going to be one of the best insights that you find. So there's one. Prickly, right now, the state of New Mexico, our speaker has been out and about talking with folks and has really latched onto this idea of closing ICE detention centers. So, we're going to be looking at a lot of people in corrections trying to push back on that, and us trying to find a middle ground in regards to how we manage the relationship between local government and the federal government in regards to ICE detention. So that's going to start heating up here very soon, because that's also going to be a part of the governor's special session and their agenda. And to keep it quick, we've got municipal races coming up here in New Mexico. Our 2 largest cities, Albuquerque and Santa Fe, are in the middle of their municipal elections. Both mayors are up for re-election. The mayor in Santa Fe, Alan Weber, is not seeking re-election, so it's a wide open race there. Here in Albuquerque, we are seeing the incumbent, Tim Keller, running for his 3rd term. I encourage everybody to tune in to the largest economic driver in the state and the Albuquerque city elections, and start paying attention, because I think a lot of people are going to be surprised with those turnouts. So,
Sisto, I'm in Arizona, and I ran into 5 people from Albuquerque, right? And so we were just talking, and I was visiting with them, and they're just visiting Phoenix for a little bit. And it was amazing. I said, oh, so what do you think about the upcoming election? Now, to I don't know all the candidates in the race, but to Alex's, they didn't really know Alex.
Yeah.
But when they brought up Tim, boy, did they have some mean things to say about Mayor Keller. I was like, okay, I'm not his buddy. Like,
yeah,
I don't represent him, but wow, they brought out some true heat regarding
and that's
Mayor
why
Keller.
I'm gonna tell people quickly, start paying attention, because here we're in at the tail end of August, starting to get ready, moving into September, October. Election is in November, so that's 3 months away, and I want folks to really take some time here in New Mexico to look at all of these municipal elections. So with that being said, that's all for this week's Cactus Crossfire. Remember to keep it impolitically spicy, keep it prickly, and to keep it quick. Eddie?
All right, sir. Good to see you. Until next time.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.